Hello everyone, welcome to Code with Femi. In this video, we're going to be looking at stored procedure and functions. What is a stored procedure? Stored procedure is actually a set of SQL code that you've actually implemented and you want to save it for you to be able to reuse it as many times as you want to based on whatever case you're dealing with. And it is actually stored in your database. So when you have a stored procedure, you store it in your database and you can always execute it whenever you want to based on whatever operations you want it to carry out. I'm going to show you how you can set up a basic stored proc. So you start with the keyword create, and also bear in mind you can actually make sure that you set to the actual database you want to use, or you can also just use whatever name of your database. So for this database I'm using this one, which is joins, right? So I'm saying go, and then the keyword create would actually be the first thing you have to write, and then followed by procedure. And then after that, then you now have to put in a name. What is the name of your actual procedure? Like, what name are you giving your? So let's actually call this person details proc. I'm going to call it that because of I just want to fetch data specifically from this actual table called person. So in there I'm just going to say as. So after you've written that command, you have to say as, and then below that you now write the necessary queries that you want to write. So for this example, I'm just going to keep it as simple as possible. Let's say select list from person, so from person table, and then I'm going to say go. So basically what I've actually implemented here is just a simple basic stored proc, and your stored proc is actually stored under this folder called programmability. Programmability is where your stored proc gets stored, which is under this actual folder, stored procedures. If I refresh this, you see that it's currently blank. Okay, there's something there. Let's just remove that. Let's delete this one. Let's delete this one. Then let's refresh again. So you see that it's actually currently blank. I'm going to execute it again. And you can see there that we have successfully created our first stored procedure. If I refresh this, you see that we do have a stored procedure now. And now the next question you want to ask is, how do you use it? How do you use it? So basically, for you to be able to use it, you can actually execute it, and then it will run this actual command for you. So there are cases where you have a lot of commands in here, and it will do all of that for you. You have delete list from address, and then you have update. You can have as many command in here. It doesn't actually really store, it doesn't really stop you from you can have as many SQL code in here as you want it, but I would actually recommend that you keep it as lightweight as possible, because if it's becoming too massive, it's very difficult for to maintain it. It's very difficult to maintain it. So I will recommend that you keep it as lightweight as possible and let it just do specific things. Don't let it be too doing too many things. So yeah, we have just simple select from person. That is all we have here. And how can we execute this? Let me just copy that name, cut that name, and let's remove this entire command. And then in here I'm just going to say exec. So exec is the keyword we use to execute stored procs, right? So in there you will see that when I execute this actual command, then everything will be fine. Okay, let's execute it. You can see that this actual stored proc is now doing the necessary that I needed to do. You can see now that I don't really have to do select list from person every time. I'm just going to open up the stored proc so you can see what is in there. You can see right there that all I have in here is just select list from person. So I don't really need to do select list from person all the time. can actually just call this stored proc anytime I want to. Now, this is another scenario that you might actually want to use a stored proc for. So but this specific stored proc I have is actually a parameterless stored proc. It doesn't take any parameters. You can just execute it by itself. The other one is you might want to have a stored proc that actually takes in parameters, right? So let us actually alter this actual procedure. So you say use, so alter procedure. So after saying alter procedure, in here now I want to pass in, what can we filter on? Let's say I want to filter on first name. I will keep it as just one parameter and then we'll take it from there. Let's just say n varchar. Then we'll make this 50. I think that's the length of our data type for first name. And then in here I can now say select list from person where first name equals at first name. So what this is going to now do is just going to return back the list of data for me based on whatever information I pass in here. Okay, so our first name, as you can see here, is Femi Code YouTube, right? So let's just remember that Femi Code YouTube. Okay, so let's actually just execute this, because let's alter our stored proc. If you go back to this stored proc, you see that our stored proc has been updated. You can see right there that we have the updated version now. So how do we now use this? How do we invoke a stored proc with a parameter that has a parameter? It's simple. You just have to remove all of that, and then this as well must go. You can just say exec. So it's exec the stored proc you want to execute, and then followed by the parameter, the specific parameter that you want to pass in. In our case, it's actually first name equals to what value you want it to you want to use. So what was the actual stuff we said we had as the first name? Is Femi Code YouTube, right? So let's start with Femi. So if I run this is actually just going to return just one single record for me. And if I say code, this will actually return back where first name is actually code. And this is how you can actually set up your stored proc, and you can always reuse it whenever you need to. You really don't have to worry about writing different queries, where this is this, where this is that. You can always have just one stored proc, and that would actually take care of whatever queries you want to execute. You can see that this is actually very nice. I'm just passing in a value and it's giving me whatever data I need, and this is actually very amazing. And also, one thing I just want to mention is that we can also modify it even further, right? So let's go to modify. Let's see if we can modify it further. So in here I want to pass in another one, which is, let's say that I want to pass in two actual parameters. So you can have as many parameters as you want, or last name. So in this scenario now, I'm just saying if first name is first name, don't forget, always remember you have to give it a data type, because with that it won't work. So just bear that in mind. So now I've passed in another parameter. So now you have two parameters going into your stored proc. Isn't that amazing? And now the query is just saying fetch me persons where first name is equals to that first name that came in, or where the last name that came in is equals to the last name in this table. Okay, and then we can actually just execute this. Once we execute this, you can see our stored proc is actually ready for us. And if we try to run this as it is, guess what is going to happen? Is going to complain that last name is not supplied, because now we've changed it to actually take in two parameters. So just bear that in mind. So in this scenario, and I'm going to say last name because what's the last name? Let me use my last name, Sonia, and then let's see what is going to happen when we run this. So this has to bring in two records, because remember we're saying that fetch me the first name where it is either YouTube or Otusanya. So it's gonna bring me where the last name matches whatever value I pass in, or where YouTube. So if we swap this around, let's see what happens. When I say Femi Otusanya, what do you think is gonna happen? It's gonna just bring out the first result, because that's the only place it actually matches the value that I actually passed in into the stored proc. So this is actually how you like set up your stored proc. It's as simple as this, and that is actually it for stored proc. So the next thing I would like to touch on is actually functions. Like functions is actually like, you know, a small piece of code that you want to compute. Let's say in cases where for instance you want to do like maths, you want to like add two numbers together. I'm just using that as an example, where you want to add two numbers together, or in a scenario where when you add two numbers you want to add VAT to it. Let's say in an accounting space where you want to do some transactions and you want to add VAT to it. This is where function can actually really help, where you can set up a function that carries out a certain operation for you in SQL. Basically, how do you do that? You can actually achieve this by, you know, going onto the IDE, and same story, we're still gonna use the joins DB, and then in there I can actually just say use join, just to be safe, to be sure that I'm using the right DB. And then the next thing I want to say is that I want to say create. This is how you create, and then you say function, and then the name of the function, which is, let's say, add two values. Okay, and then in there I want to pass in a parameter. So my first parameter is a, and the type is actually of integer. Just bear that in mind. This is how you actually pass in parameters into, like, set up a parameter for your function. And in there, the next statement you want to write is returns. So you want to specify that, okay, what type does it return? This actual function returns an integer, because we're going to sum these two values together, and the type is going to be that will be returned as an integer. And then we can now see as, then we use the actual keyword begin, and then we use end. And in there, in between here, this is where you write your query, you know, write your query. And in there I can actually just write my queries, but for this example I'm just going to say a plus at b. So that's what I'm going to return for this. So actually with this now, if I actually like, if I execute this now, this will create a new function inside of this actual section of the DB, so which is your scalar valued functions. So scalar valued function actually only returns one single type, you know, which is like it only a single type, data type. It can return like a table for you. So just bear that in mind. If you setting up a scalar valued function, it's just going to return a single type, and for a table valued, it will return a table. We'll get to that. We'll actually do an example on that. But basically with this one now, let's just execute this. And if you actually refresh this actual section of the actual code, Object Explorer, you can see the add two values is actually a function, right? You can also like right click and click on modify and actually see what is in there. You can see right there, the information is right there, what we've just written on this, which is quite amazing, right? So how do I actually call this? How do I really call this? So I'm just gonna, let's just clean up all of this so that we can have more room to play. So yeah, I'm just gonna, that's the name of the function. I'm just gonna say select DBO. So just bear in mind, you might have to specify that, you know, that full name, you know, just to make sure that you actually like referring to that specific function. So we say select and open bracket, so I can add, you know, two numbers, and then I can now say as result. So this is actually a function that I can now use now. If I execute this, guess what? That's my result there. 3 plus 5 is equals to 8. So you can actually like, you know, use this. I can even say 15. So what's 15 plus 5? It gives you 20. You can actually say 30. So this is where you actually have a function that you can easily just reuse in your SQL code whenever you want to. So just actually bear that in mind. This is how we set up a scalar valued, you know, function. So let's go to the other one, which is your table valued functions, right? In there, so basically let's just clean this one out, and then we use the same keyword, create function, and then we say person information. Let's just say that person information, and then this doesn't take in any parameters. You can also make it take parameters, but for this one I just want to make it like parameterless. So we say returns table. So this actual statement is very crucial. Just make sure that you specify it as this actually tells it that this is actually a table valued function. Okay, and then you can now just return your actual whatever table you want to return. Select list from person. Okay, and execute this. We have a person function right now, right? And then what we can now do is we can say select list from that actual information. You can see there that it's actually returning back the list of person for us. And also we can actually now say, okay, we want to add a parameter to actually say first name, just like we did for the stored proc. Can have the same thing, end voucher, then this will be 50, and then we say where first name equals at first name. Okay, then we say alter, because remember we want to alter this now, right? Isn't that what we want to do? See, so we see there that this is actually now like altered. We've altered it. So basically alter function person information, we've actually passed in the parameter now, and then that is actually like perfect now. So basically what this is telling me now that I can do is I can do this, right? Let's take that out and say Femi. Okay, and if I actually execute this now, this should just give me that. And then if I say code, same story, and if I say YouTube, that would actually give me what I need from that. It's actually a table value. And also you can see right there, if I expand this now, you will see that there's a new one called person information. So this is actually how you set up a scalar valued functions, table valued functions. And yeah, this actually helps you to be able to write your database system in a much more structured way. You just have to also think about where is it applicable for me to use a function, where is it applicable for me to use a stored proc, where is it applicable for me to to do truncate, to do a delete. You just have to start thinking about all of those things. And I hope you guys learned from this video. And the last and final one, it's been a long time coming. Yo, it's a lot. Yeah, so the last one that we're going to be touching on is analysis. This is actually what we're going to be touching on, and in there as well I will see if I can actually like sneak in profiling, like SQL profiling. I'll see what we can do, but for now let's just keep on learning, and I will see you in my next video. Keep well.